Well, hey there, freaks. It's your boy Marty Bent here to introduce this week's episode of Tales from the Crypt. Earlier this week, I sat down with Jamal James, the creator of Polar, a productivity tool for developers building on the Lightning Network. Had a killer time sitting down, shooting the shit with Jamal. We talked a lot about Polar, about Lightning, about why he's into Bitcoin, how he found it. It's a very interesting story. He still does run his own company to this day, and you're going to listen to it. You'll hear the story. It's a very interesting story of how he got into the space and how he came to decide to focus on Bitcoin and Lightning particularly. This episode of Tales from the Crypt is brought to you by the Cash App. As you know, Cash App is the simplest way to send and save money and to stack sats. They're letting you stack sats, send sats, receive sats. You can do it all right? And now it's the simplest way to try to grow your money. Introducing Cash App Investing. I know. They got stonks now. Why do you want them? I don't know why you want them. Some people have their own reasons. Everybody has their own reasons. I hope you have your own reasons. I hope not allocating the decision-making for the stocks to people who are just out there to get fees for you, right? So do your own research. And now when you do your own research, unlike investing tools that only let you buy entire shares of stock, Cash App is going to let you instantly invest as little or as much as you want in any stock available on the app. All right. This way, when your favorite company stock is just a little too expensive, you can still own a piece with as little as $1 because Cash App is directly connected to your bank account. There are no 4 to 5 day waiting periods for inbound transfers, so you can start investing today. Oi. Brokerage services are provided by Cash App Investing, a subsidiary of Square and member SIPC. And as always, when you sign up for the Cash App, use the code STACKINGSATS. That's one word, STACKINGSATS, STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10, and then Cash App's going to be so kind to send $10 to our good friends at Owls Lacrosse. Download the Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today and enjoy this episode with Jamal. It was an incredible time. Okay.
Tales from the Crypt.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent here. It's a Monday night. I'm getting after it early this week on Tales from the Crypt. Very excited for this conversation. I've had the pleasure of getting to know tonight's guest more and more over the last few months, in particular, as through the New York Bitcoin scene. It's an incredible scene we got here. I'd like to introduce you freaks to the creator of Polar, you just described it to me, a productivity tool for Lightning Network developers. I'd like to introduce you freaks to Jamal James. Jamal, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, Marty? What's up, man?
Nothing much. Very much enjoying this Hennessy you brought.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. It's the best, my favorite.
So what is the story behind it? It's the pure white.
Pure white Hennessy, not sold in the States. There's only 2 geographical locations in the world you can get it. France, Cognac, France, and in the Caribbean, Bahamas, Barbados.
French Caribbean islands, or?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Well, it's delicious. I was saying I could chug this.
Yeah. It's all yours, man.
I had the whiskey out, but I'm very happy for the Hennessy Audible.
My drink of choice.
No, I'm very excited for this conversation. I mean, like I said, I've been getting to know you more over the last couple of weeks and the last few months, actually. We had a good conversation at Pierre's going away dinner. Yeah. You have a very interesting story.
Do I?
I think so.
I don't feel like I do.
Well, you software background, and you found a little niche within Bitcoin, which a lot of people strive for, which I find very interesting. So before we get into Bitcoin, what were you doing before Bitcoin, and what brought you to it?
So I would say what brought me into Bitcoin was, well, prior to Bitcoin, I kind of, how far back do I want to go? Actually, I've only had 2 jobs my entire life. I'm middle-aged, I'd say. I'm not young anymore, but...
Got a few kids.
Yeah, I got a few kids. So fresh out of college, I worked at a company called Computer Associates at the time, CA. They're like a Fortune 500 company. Build software for like mainframes and, huge 25,000 employees all across the world globally. So I started my career there doing IT work. Went to school, University for Computer Science, but so learned how to write code and all that stuff there in very old languages. And
Like what?
there's a language called Modular 3. Modular 3 is what I learned in Stony Brook. They switched to Java my senior year, but that was literally remoting into a mainframe terminal, like a Linux-based environment, and doing all your programming in a terminal using what these hardcore crypto guys use today, like Vim, Emacs, and just no user interface, just black and white screen, writing
I was
code.
going to say, sounds like a cypherpunk's wet dream.
It
right?
does. Definitely getting into crypto brought me back. Brought me back. But so after that, I did IT work for a few years, and then started a company back in 2006. 2006, started a company doing like websites. Originally, a partner of mine, my co-founder, was a restaurateur, has had multiple delis, restaurants out in Long Island. It was kind of his idea. I want to build this website that people can just order online from me. And this is 05, 06.
Pre-Grubhub.
Yeah, pre-Grubhub. This is, I mean, at the time, it was pretty new. There was no one doing like food ordering online. It pretty much was eBay and Amazon was the only place people would trust enough to put their credit card in. It was pretty taboo to put your credit card online at those times. But he had the idea, and we kind of connected through a mutual relationship. Like I said, when I was at CA, his cousin was my manager at CA.
Okay.
So that's how the introduction started. And in 2006, we decided to quit our jobs. Started giving away sites for free in the beginning, and then first year got about 4 employees, or not including us, so like 2 other employees, a designer and customer support person. And we just kind of grew the business from there. And so it's been actually this month made the 14-year anniversary of me building this company to now over 50 employees and a few thousand customers all across U.S. and Canada. It's profitable company. It's not like it's no Uber, but it's definitely fulfilling.
No, congrats. If Nassim Taleb would hear, he'd be thanking you aggressively for being an entrepreneur. Building a company and sustaining it for 15 years seems like something that's very hard to do.
Oh no, it's definitely not easy. The first few years, it was surprisingly, the first few years are the hardest. My partner and I had this joke because when you're building a business, you're the last to get paid. Like, we literally had to make sure employees were paid before we got paid. So the first few years was literally just blood, sweat, and tears. Like, we used to print paychecks for ourselves, but we literally just thumbtack them to the wall. So we call our paychecks wallpaper because there was no taking those to the bank.
Was it Ricky Henderson who did that with a paycheck once?
Right, exactly.
I think it was the A's. They were wondering why their payroll was off by a few $100,000, and they found out that Ricky Henderson never cashed a couple checks. He just framed it and put it on his wall.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's how we lived for a few years.
but he was doing it out of vanity. You guys are doing it out of necessity.
Right, we had no choice. It was like, dude, if I could just get $100 to put some gas in the car and some groceries for the house.
I mean, 14, 15 years that you've been building, technology's changed a lot. The stacks changed a lot. The interactions have changed a lot. What's it been like keeping up and adapting?
Drastically. I mean, to be honest with you, it's been fun. I'm myself. I mean, we have a great team that I work with. I'm super excited about the latest in tech. So we're pretty forward thinking in terms of trying to keep up with what's going on. Like when I originally built the stack, it was in C# and .NET on the back end, a whole bunch of not much going on the front end. But then we saw this transition, I'd say, over the last 6 to 8 years of these front end based applications with React,
Yeah.
JavaScript heavy.
What else? Yeah. when I was selling software from like 2014 to 2016, software services, yeah, it was like React, Ember.js was big at the time, and I think that died out.
Angular became big.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were actually pretty early. With React, we were using React. Wow, they were still small. Like it wasn't something you would put on your resume. It literally was like, I forget the version number. It was like 0.14 or something like that. But this was, I don't know, 5 years ago. But we were looking to build some software, and we were evaluating what was available on the market in terms of frameworks, and front-end development started becoming really pretty popular, and it was either that, it was Angular. This was before Vue.js. I mean, Angular and React were pretty much the only two that were out there. There were some other very small niche frameworks, but they weren't. We didn't know how sustainable how long they'd be around. So we kind of, after evaluating, chose React, and yeah, we've been doing React development for a pretty long time.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's a great example of sort of the network effects these frameworks have, and like some of the frameworks I was pitching when I was selling services 4 years ago aren't around anymore, are just completely dead. So
yeah.
how do these like network effects come to be, and how does like one framework win out over another? Is it developer?
Yeah, I think it's developer mindshare. Honestly, it's because that's what makes great frameworks is the developer community around it. To be able to go to Stack Overflow and ask a question and get someone to answer it. To be able to look up blog posts, search for an issue and find blog posts. To be able to contribute if you find a bug. To be able to give back and push it. So I think that's one of the great things about open source community is that it allows a community to foster around a certain project, which is, kind of one of the reasons that got me into Bitcoin and crypto.
Yeah, so you're providing a natural segue here.
Yeah, I am. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
That alley-oop.
This is one of the hardest parts of the job is creating natural segues. You got into it because an investor asked you to look into how you would hire a developer, correct?
Yeah. So, an investor in my company, early investor many years ago, he had began getting interested in cryptocurrencies much before I did. I remember like 2013, he mentioned it. I didn't really pay it much mind. I was head down, buried in my business. It was just like nothing else mattered outside of making my company successful. Mm-hmm. So I was just, sounds good, but not interested. And so it was in 2017 where he approached me saying he's looking to start a company inside of the cryptocurrency industry. He's heard some great things about this project called Ethereum. He says it's just like JavaScript. You just need JavaScript developers. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking to start a company. I want to kind of put together or find some JavaScript developers or developers that can build on Ethereum's. And he just said, hey, could you help me out in terms of understanding like what the skill sets I'm looking for, maybe help me put a job description together so I can post it online, eventually help him out with interviewing and stuff like that. So I didn't know anything about cryptocurrency at all. Like I said, I've been ignoring it for many years.
If you don't mind me asking, what year was this?
This was 2017.
Okay.
So this was during the thing, the mania phase, which I had no idea was even happening.
What part of the year is this? Like spring, summer?
Yeah. Summer. Yeah, this was summer. I think the first time I looked at it, prices of Bitcoin might have been around 2,000, 3,000, something like that.
Yeah. Like 1,500 to 3,000.
Right,
yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it ran up. People forget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, we're sitting here at like around 8,000 right now, and people are like, oh, we're so far. But we were only above 10,000 for like 14 days.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
If that, or 20 days. I forget what the exact number is, but you get the point, freaks.
Yeah.
So what was your first thought when you did take it?
To be honest with you, when I saw Ethereum, like I literally spent the first night, I spent like just reading, like, what is Ethereum? What does it do? And, at the time it was just like unstoppable applications, world computer. I was just mind blown. Is this real? Like, holy crap. I can't believe this actually exists. Understanding what a blockchain was and trying to wrap my head around it was, it hit me. I look back and say, if I had spent just a few hours looking into it back in 2013 or 2012, maybe even, I could see myself getting interested in it, but just not having looked into it.
Just you find it when you find it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you gotta wait.
Yeah.
Till the right moment to find it. So.
And so you were. It seems like you were enticed, right? By
Yeah. I was definitely very interested in it. As soon as he mentioned it, it was just like, as soon as I looked into it, and so over the next few weeks, I continued to help him out with what he was looking for help for. So obviously, at the same time, I'm looking at the prices, and the prices are moving. I've been in the stock market investing for a few years prior to that, so I had money in the stock market, dibble and dabble, definitely not trading or anything like that, but buy some. It seems like Apple's not moving. Let me do this, or Microsoft, or move this and move that. So nothing active, but seeing my portfolio move in the stock market, and by that time, I think I had put let me just throw $1,000 at it, and it went up like 40% in a week or something like that. And I was just, what? I can't even get this in a year.
Was this Ethereum or Bitcoin?
This was, I think it was Bitcoin. Yeah, I think I just bought Bitcoin. Yeah. So I saw Ethereum, but my immediate reaction to the token Ether was like, I don't really see the monetary value of it immediately. Like, to me, it was like, all right, it's gas. Like, that's the interpretation I was receiving immediately. So I was like, I can't really see any reason why someone would want to hold this for a long term.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I had a little bit tangent of a backstory, but I definitely had spent a little bit of time trying to understand money after the financial crisis. I was, involved with my company at the time, and we saw the impacts of the financial crisis. It impacted our business just because people weren't spending.
Yeah.
People just clutched their purses.
And it's actually, my wife and I watched a funny movie that it revolves around the impact of the financial crisis, Hustlers, with Jennifer Lopez, and impacted the stripper business as well.
Yeah. People just stopped spending as much as they used to. Like, if it wasn't an absolute necessity, it was not, they didn't want to let it go. So yeah, we saw that impact. There were times where we didn't even know if we were going to make it. Like, oh, this might be it for us, type of thing. And so fast forward to when I'm looking at Ethereum and Bitcoin, I had spent some time after the crisis just trying to understand what the hell happened, because I'm not a Wall Street guy. I don't know what's going on with the banks and the finance guys. But you watch some documentaries or some YouTube videos, and you kind of get an idea of, what went wrong. And I had this eerie feeling that just something isn't right. Like, there's something broken here, which I can't explain. I don't know how to wrap my head around it. I'm not a gold bug, of sound money. Like, I didn't even know what sound money was at the time.
No, I think whenever the powers that be, all the politicians and central bankers in the world say, hey, we need $2 trillion right now or the world's going to implode.
Right. Yeah.
Something goes off in people's minds. Like, hey, something might be wrong.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, the too big to fail thing. It's just like, that doesn't seem like how an economy is supposed to function.
Right.
Like, somebody, if they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, they should fail.
Right.
Why are they the only industry that get bailed out?
And, well, that's the thing. We're 11 years out now, and that's what is interesting, right? We're at this point where it seems like we're going to go back to QE, and we're just going to revert to the policies that we instituted right after the financial crisis. But back then, when those policies were being instituted, it felt like there was like a more of a, like, Occupy Wall Street was around, and people were viscerally angry and like on the streets. But now it's just like, it's
just a normal thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a normal thing. It's like people, it's like they can, if they're persistent enough and able to Band-Aid over the bullet wound for long enough, people forget.
Yeah, that's very true.
Short memories, man. But tangent, back to Bitcoin. So you had this in your back of your mind. Ether was gas in your mind.
Right. So to me, Ether was gas in my mind, and Bitcoin just felt like, Digital gold, I can buy that. It's uncontrolled. Originally, a funny story too was I had, when people said it was, a fixed supply, I'm like, it's an open source project. Like I can go in and I see the line of code where it says it's a supply. How is this not, set in stone? Like how is this set in stone? Like how is this not changeable? Anyone can update this code and run it. And it wasn't until months later. I still was skeptical, thinking like, I'm not buying this 21 million cap. Like this is so easy to change it. I can go in and change it. Like, how is this possible? And then it wasn't until months later, like after, so I came in, I started getting interested in Bitcoin right around the Bcash fork.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember it was towards November, there was like the 2X.
2X failed.
Right,
The
2X was
off
originally
by one.
Right, they were originally going to fork, and then they called it off a few days earlier. But it was then that I really started to wrap my hand around the consensus protocol and the fact that even though it's in the code, everyone has to run the code in order to make it.
Yeah. There's a social aspect to it.
Right, there's a social
The Schelling point, like the Schelling point. What code base is the Schelling point?
Right, exactly.
The one with the limit.
Yeah. So that's kind of when I was like, oh, wow, this is no joke. Like, this is the real deal. The 21 million limit is actually set in stone, and no one can change that. So yeah, that's kind of when I started, like, really focusing, like, primarily on Bitcoin. Originally, it was like, and at the time, this is the ICO hype. So everyone, had a new blockchain.
Wand chain, IOTA.
Wand chain, IOTA. Everyone's new blockchain was going to be 10,000 TPS and, much better than Bitcoin in all aspects of the word, much better than Ethereum. And, so this was super confusing.
Yeah.
For someone just coming into the space.
I love Bitcoin, but buy my shitcoin, please.
Right.
So this is like the end of 2017. So Lightning wasn't launched till January 2018, correct?
Yes. I wasn't paying attention to Lightning at all at that time, but yes.
So you're running your company, and how long did it take you to sort of coalesce on Bitcoin and then decide to actually contribute via Lightning, or did you start doing PRs for Bitcoin Core?
Yeah, so I would say my first contribution to Lightning was in the summer of 18. I contributed to the Zap wallet. Jack Mahler, shout out to him.
Shout out, Jack.
Awesome dude.
Incredible dude.
Yeah, very incredible. His whole family.
Right.
So prior to that, I'd say the early 2018 was still just, in the markets, on the investing side of it, so to speak. And then, once peak hit and it started coming down, and it's like, all right, it's not going up anymore. Excitement's kind of wearing off. Let me really get my head wrapped around the technicals, and that's when I started diving deep into kind of reading Andreas's book.
Mastering Bitcoin.
Yeah, Mastering Bitcoin. So read through that. Actually, I'm sorry, no. Prior to that, actually, I had gotten into Lightning first. I was interested in Lightning first prior to that because I think I did start hearing things about, Lightning Network is a scaling solution or a scaling solution for Bitcoin. Started looking into the L&D implementation, which, had an API. So I'll preface this by saying that most of my development has been all in like the application level development, no protocols, low level engineering type of stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to what you're building.
Yeah. So, so, as an application level developer, approaching Bitcoin itself can seem a bit daunting. Like, these transactions are like an array of bytes, which in hexadecimal formats. And, these are things you don't deal with as an application level developer. You get JSON strings, integers, numbers. Clean. It's clean, it's human readable.
You're going back to, what was it called?
JSON.
No, the first language, something.
Modular 3.
Modular 3.
Right, exactly. All command line, all terminal. Yeah, this was so Bitcoin was a little, like spooky, like ooh, that's low level stuff. So, but then when I started looking into Lightning, that's when I was like, oh, this is L&D. That's an awesome API, REST API that's, human readable, is more along the lines of what you would expect as a person developing mobile applications, web applications, desktop applications. So that's kind of what got me interested in and I felt like at the time Lightning was pretty wide open in terms of, what's available. I felt like Bitcoin, close to 10 years of development, a lot of the, the low-hanging fruit has already been built.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, what's Lightning? This like open green field that, they call it in the development world. There's like plenty of opportunity to contribute to the space.
And it's changed a lot since the first launch.
Yeah, it's been a lot of development. I mean, it's grown pretty big, and also the community around it, and the tooling and the features and functionality is just. I'm like, we'll go into this as well, but I'm super excited about AMP. Like that to me is like a huge leap forward.
Being able to make a single payment for multiple channels at once.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a huge leap forward because in terms of usability, because now people don't really have to worry about how much is on this channel, how much is on that channel. I think that's a burden, that people shouldn't have to think about. It's like my bank account. If I have $50 in my account, why can't I send $50? Why is the max I could send $15?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, they don't realize it's separated between account or
exactly through channels.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of how we should go from here because, all right, let's just go naturally. AMP is amping you up and that's the thing. Like, all right, here's how we go. I want to work this in because BitMEX Research posted over the weekend an update on Lightning Network. They did a bunch of in-depth research and found that there was something like 90,000 forced close channels, which is higher than expected. And not that people are closing channels, but it's like higher because they expected fewer channels to be open. So it's alluding to the fact that there may be a lot of private channels that people can't see exist. So it would also allude to the fact that maybe Lightning Network's getting a lot more usage than people expect right now.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And that's what we want ultimately. Like that's the privacy we're looking for. It's an unfortunate side effect that we can't get visibility into the entire network to be able to, scream to the mountaintops how great Lightning's doing. But at the same time, that's exactly what we want, is the privacy of not being able to be seen on the Lightning Network.
No, it's very, very underrated privacy provider right now in the cryptocurrency space. Everybody's focused on individual coins, but again, like I've been saying this forever, like second layer solutions always seemed like the best way for me, like stacking it and working in that fashion. So I guess before we get into what's exciting you, I think to help maybe other developers that may be listening to this podcast who are trying to get in to the space and are weighing the opportunity costs of working on one project over the other, what made you pick Lightning and Bitcoin over Ethereum? Like, isn't Ethereum supposed to be easy to develop?
Yeah, so I mean, it ultimately
was it the monetary thing, like
it was the just my outlook on what's going to be around in 10 years. Where do I invest my mental energy, learning, understanding, researching, building? What's going to be here in 10, 20 years? And like I said, at the time, I was. I was seeing so much out there. Like there was a point in time where I was like trying to keep up with not even the technical side, just the
names,
names and the announcements and this release and this partnerships. Oh my goodness, the partnerships!
So many partnerships. Jack Ma, so many partnerships you never knew he engaged in.
Yeah, it's just trying to keep up with all this. It was just like, all right, I'm never going to get anything done if I try to do everything. So I have to focus my attention somewhere. And I mean, ultimately, the choice came down to focus on Bitcoin primarily because I felt it had the most potential of longevity. I mean, to be honest with you, I felt Ethereum was still. I worry about whether or not. I mean, scaling is necessary. Like I understood it, to me, I looked at it as scaling is an absolute necessity for an application level infrastructure. You can't do anything without scaling. You have to scale it. And I mean, transactions per second. If you want to run, if businesses are going to run, their infrastructure on top of something like Ethereum, this unstoppable computer, it has to scale. Like whether it's on chain or not, and contrary to that, I believe with the monies you don't want to be moving around too much. You want stability. You want you want to be sure that it's not going to change underneath you. Like you don't want feature after feature after feature after feature for your money. Like, I want to know this dollar in my pockets, I'm going to be able to spend it 20 years from now if I leave it under my mattress.
Yeah, because feature after feature after feature is also precedent after precedent after precedent.
Right.
And precedent to change it in the future, right?
Yeah, and you want confidence. I think I've learned that for your money, the less it changes, the better. It's I don't want my money moving on me, moving around on me. So, from that perspective, and it just made sense to me in terms of, how conservative, how very, very strict and meticulous the development community is around Bitcoin. There's multiple eyes looking at every single change that goes in and reviewed, up and down and left and right before anything gets put into the protocol, let alone into the consensus code.
Yeah, I mean, we had a front row seat to a couple of the minds working on that, reviewing that last week at the 100th Socratic meetup.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's some incredible talent working in the space. I mean, I was blown away when I went to my first Bit Devs. I literally sat there just...
What was that like?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
I've told my first Bit Dev story on this podcast. Let's hear yours.
So, when was the first Bit Devs? This was probably, I think, September or October 2018. I had already contributed to the Zap wallet. And I remember going in there, sitting down, everyone's pretty nice. I mean, I didn't really speak to too many people, but Jay, when I walked in, I was there pretty early, so there weren't that many people there. He said, "What's up?" Started talking, chit-chat. Then I sat down, and they start going over, Jay starts going over all the papers that's been written, the news, and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's pretty digestible. I'm not grasping nothing but 10% of this stuff.
I don't think I've grasped more than like 5% of anything I've consumed it.
Like some of this stuff is like, whew. And then John starts going into the PRs and the reviews, and I was just like, after 2 hours sitting in that room, I was literally like, I've never been in a room with this many like intelligent developers, engineers, just people in general. And the conversations that were going on there too were just incredible. Seeing Matt just jump in and give some feedback of like, all right, that's not going to work. Do this or do that. And it was just, I've literally like never sat in the room. See, it's for me, and I've been kind of siloed, I'll admit, in terms of like, definitely have a great team of developers that I work with that contribute great ideas, but it was like, it was immediately obvious that these were like cream of the crop type of developers that were in here.
I'm always mentally exhausted from trying to keep up, like literally physically drained from, because I mean, it's a testament to Jay and John and now Andre, who leads the lightning session of the meetup. They prepare. Like Jay reads a crazy amount of papers and vulnerability reports that I don't think I could even do in a year, let alone from month to month. Like a bit, the amount of white papers he has to read and we talk about per meetup is impressive. And then on top of that, the whole format of it, the Socratic nature of it, people throwing ideas out there and battle testing those ideas in a very level-headed way, most of the time.
Yeah, the discussions are just they're originally they're very intimidating. I was like, I'm not sure if I belong in this room right now. Like these guys, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to contribute to these type of discussions. Yeah.
Well, this is a great segue. Thank you again for more segues. You got over your imposter syndrome and you've created something that developers fucking love. So let's talk about Polar.
Yeah, man.
So you're talking about these things need to be scalable at the end of the day, and it seems like Lightning might be the network via which Bitcoin scales at least to some capacity, and that's what you're focusing on. And then to scale the second layer, to make that scalable, you have to make it possible to build on top of it. And to do that, you have to have tools that make it easy to build on top of it. And that's what you've built, a tool that helps with developer productivity. And I've only seen one review, and it's from somebody who else has been on this podcast. And if she's giving this review, your product's definitely the creme de la creme. Carla Kirk-Cohen saying, as soon as it came out, she scrapped everything she was doing and started using your product right away.
Yeah.
So what the hell did you build?
So it's a developer tool. I mean, it's weird. I know people here like, why would you build something like that? A tool for developers, like, that not for end users, but it's essentially a developer tool that simplifies creating a local Lightning network. So if you're not familiar, as a developer, building against any type of external service, you want to simulate. You want to have some type of test environment that you can test with. Bitcoin does have a test net, but and Lightning, there's a Lightning network around the test net. But if you're building if you're building an application, you want immediate feedback. You want a very quick feedback loop. You make a change to your code, you run it, you see what works, what doesn't work, what's broken, what you need to tweak, what command's not working, what errors you're getting, how to handle them, update your UI with this information. So you want that feedback loop to be as quick as possible. So in Bitcoin, there's this reg test mode that you can run your Bitcoin core node in, which if you're developing against Bitcoin and Lightning Network, you can, LND, you can run in reg test mode as well. So you can basically have a local copy of a Bitcoin network with as many nodes as you want to create, essentially running on your laptop, where you don't even need an internet connection to be running multiple nodes, multiple Bitcoin nodes, multiple Lightning nodes. And then you can have your application interact with those nodes in order to be able to, either create and destroy the network or reset the network back to the beginning, or deposit and transfer funds, mine blocks. So you don't want to wait 10 minutes every time you make a change for a new block to be mined. Like, it'll take you 2 weeks to get any feature done. So when I began working on Lightning Network, that was the first thing, is like, all right, how do I get started running this reg test environment? So went through, Lightning Labs has a tutorial. I remember first looking at that and walking through each step, download source code, compile it, install the dependencies, execute this command, update this config file, run your Bitcoin node, whether it be BTCD, which is a Go implementation of a Bitcoin client, or Bitcoin Core, which I don't know if you probably haven't compiled Bitcoin Core from source code, but let's just say it's a pretty daunting task, and it's not simple, to say the least. So, getting that environment set up could take you hours. Like, there's a fair amount of commands to run. If you haven't done it, it's your first time ever doing it, it could certainly take you hours, possibly even days. I've heard stories of people saying it's taken them days just to get a local environment set up. So when I went through it, I had it working, and it was great. And if I wanted to add or change my nodes up, it was a bit of work. I had to change a bunch of configuration files. So it was a lot of command line, a lot of configuration. Pretty much your nodes are running in the command line. So you have to, when I restart my computer, I have to restart up the Bitcoin node, type in commands to start up. If I got 4 Lightning nodes running, to start up each one. And, of course, I can create aliases in order to make it quicker, or script it a bit to make it quicker. But, it's all command line. There's no visual feedback or anything like that.
And were you discovering these pain points when you were building on Zap?
Building on Joule, actually,
Joule.
is when I really faced it, yeah. Because I spent, after Willow Byrne launched his project, the Lightning Joule browser plugin, I was really excited about that project because I felt like it needed to exist. Like I said, I had spent some time on the Ethereum side, so they had MetaMask. So when he launched that, it was just like, oh, this has to exist. Like, this needs to exist for Lightning to interact with the web. So there was, when he launched it, there was definitely like coming soon type of features. Like I think it couldn't send on-chain Bitcoin transactions in the initial release. And there was even helping with his project. My first couple pull requests were just like developer productivity improvements. Like, all right, let's tweak this. I spent time with React. So React has this thing called hot reload where you get even faster feedback instead of having to refresh the browser or the plugin. It live updates whenever you make changes to your code. So, my first couple PRs was just like implementing those features in his project to make, just that speed up that feedback loop of making changes to your code, seeing an app, and just the faster you can be as iterating over your source code, the more you'll get done in less time. So I spent a bunch of time with Will, or working on Will's project, a few months, probably even more. And that's where I basically got my environment set up, and was spending a lot of time running those nodes and interacting with them. So that's where I suffered the pain that Polar. So it took the scenic route to get to why Polar. But
That's a good scenic route, though.
Yeah.
Working with Willow Byrne. Shout out to a fellow beefy Bitcoin boy, Willow Byrne.
Yeah, big shout, Will. So once I got so going through that experience, it was literally like, this is like, I felt like I was going back to my college days in the Modular 3 era of developing software. Like, that's what it reminded me of. And I was like, nah, not in 2018. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. Like,
the world has come too far for this.
Right. It's just unacceptable. Like, I'm better than this. As a developer, I deserve better. That was really the motivation there. It was just, I spent some time looking for what was out there, and I found a few other tools to automate this experience. Like, there's some tools, I can't forget the name. They're pretty not well known. They're pretty, like, a few people in the L&D Slack mentioned them when I had asked. But they're all command line, they're all terminal based. And I felt like, if we want to introduce a lot of the developers, at least from my perspective, in both, being an application level developer as well as hiring application level developers, their expectations are different from a protocol engineer. Protocol engineers they're looking at bits and bytes, they're optimizing for speed, they're keyboard junkies, like these guys. Just keyboard shortcut kings. But the application level developers, the people that I've spent a lot of time working with, we want to go to a website, download a tool, double click on it, launch it, and it just works. And now I can start building my application.
You want to move fast and break things, right?
Right.
Iterate, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's like, and that's what Lightning provides, is like the way to figure out how to leverage Bitcoin in maybe reckless. It is reckless. Yes, reckless is the meme that went around.
As long as you're on Reg test, you're all set. You can do reckless all day long on Reg test.
Yeah, but No, that's, I mean, well, that's, again, getting back to Polar. So you built, that's what you did the chain code summer residency, correct?
I did the seminar portion, so I wasn't an official resident, but I did get invited. I guess based off of, I applied to the residency, but they were focused on protocol developers. But they did invite me to come sit through the seminar portion, which was 2.5 weeks of presentations, a little hack sessions to hack away at some either the Bitcoin source code or Lightning project, stuff like that. Small little sacks, but a lot of it was presentations from a lot of the popular names in the Bitcoin and Lightning world, from the big companies, Blockstream, Lightning Labs and Async, and so spent the 2.5 weeks there, and there was a lot of prep for that. Like actually, I think there was about 6 weeks of weekly conversations, reading assignments, and weekly conversations about the reading assignments. Went through a lot of Jimmy Song's book at the time, a lot of the Lightning network specifications. So that was, where I was probably spent most of my time towards the spring and summer of 2018, prior to creating Prola. So it was kind of my transition from working on Joule and then was focusing on the residency stuff. And then once the residency was over, then I got jumped into Polar, because I wanted to get back into Lightning development. But I was like, you know what, something needs to exist to make this a little bit easier for developers to build on the Lightning network.
Yeah. And you launched Polar, what, 3-4 months?
When did I launch it? November, so 2 months left.
2.5, 3 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And how was it? How was it received? How have people been using it so far?
Really good. Yeah, it's surprising. I didn't think it would be received as well, especially from non-developers. Like, I didn't think non-developers would see the benefit at all. Because if you don't feel the pain, you don't really know. Like, all right, this hurts. Like, but it's been received really well. Like, I was pleasantly surprised that I thought to be honest with you, a part of it was me selfishly building for me. Like, I just was fed up.
It's 2018. I deserve better.
Right. I was just kind of fed up and just like, I need to make my life a bit easier. So let me just spend a few months hacking something together. And when I put it out there, it was just like, a lot of people was just either tweeting or messaging me like, dude, this is amazing. It makes my life so much easier. And can we do this or can we make it do that? And, it was just amazing feedback.
Yeah, what's the interaction with your project been like? Has there been a lot of PRs?
There's been a few. I think there were about 4 contributors. A couple just minor stuff. Willowburn, I think, he was circling back to me, but he made a pretty substantial contribution to it. Some great feedback in terms of feature requests, few issues posted that got fixed. So it's been pretty interactive. Not it's no Bitcoin core repository, but
you were saying some non-developers noticed it. I noticed it. I think I wrote about it like the day after you dropped it because
you did, yeah.
Because it's a sign, like you being interested enough to build this very specific niche tool for developers so that they can build on this niche second layer scaling technology. It says something, right? Like it says there's something there, and the fact that you're out there building tools so that people can build other things too. Like if it's worth building the tools, it might be worth it overall. That's true. Which is what's fascinated me about it. Like seeing you do that gives me more confidence in Lightning. The fact that you're that interested.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm a big believer. We didn't go into the economic side or too much into the philosophical side of why Bitcoin is amazing. I mean, I don't have much to contribute there, but let's just say I'm a huge believer in the social economic benefits of Bitcoin in general. As it relates to our global society and improving human beings as we are to make us better. So, I want to see Bitcoin win. I want to see Lightning win. And I just felt in order for us to build, for developers to build the next killer app, we need to attract a much wider audience of developers to the Lightning Network. And, I just want to not let the onboarding tooling experience be,
a barrier to entry.
A barrier to entry, exactly. Because if I would say, and Polar's not all that's needed. There's definitely more tooling that can be done to improve the experience.
Like what?
I think SDKs, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but basically...
Software development kits.
There you go. Okay, I forget. I don't know who I'm talking to.
I had to sell software services at some point.
Yeah, I think discovery of these tools. One, like the SDKs are definitely needed, like good polished SDKs that keep up with the implementations. There's a lot of SDKs out there, but it's pretty fragmented, because you need, for multiple languages, whether it's JavaScript or Go or Python, or, you need, there's a fair amount. There's some good ones too, in terms of SDKs with interacting with the frameworks. But I think there needs to be a little bit of organization around discovery and how people find them, because they're not easy to find. They're buried in GitHub with, unless you do some really very surgical Google searching or spend time asking questions in the Slacks and stuff there.
Yeah, so this is like a problem I'm probably not well versed on. So it's hard to find these very specific libraries that interact with these certain implementations in specific ways.
Yeah, it's not easy. I would even say that for Polar right now. I don't think it's easy to find Polar. Just having a repository on GitHub is not enough.
Yeah, so how does that compare to other software projects? Like, how would you find similar SDKs on, say, like a WordPress thing or something like that?
Having a source, like I imagine it would be great to have a source that most people are aware exists, whether it be, the Lightning website, for instance. That's where people are going to go to start, and have that source kind of recommend somewhere to go for the SDKs. I know there's, they don't want to recommend any specific thing, any one specific tool, because, it's not built by them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think that you need that in terms of onboarding developers. Like, you need, somewhere to go that's, okay, here's a list of tooling that's available for building on on top of Lightning.
Yeah, no, and we're seeing that play out like at the protocol level too. Like with I just had Andrew Challen talking about PSBTs. Like, that standard wasn't there until late last year, earlier this year, and software was arguably made inefficiently because there was no standard.
Right. And everybody's off doing their own thing.
Exactly.
Because there's no standard. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'd be more productive as a community if we work together towards that, tooling for developers. Like, if we had, I imagine, I don't know if this is possible, but I imagine, if we had, a single organization on GitHub that had SDKs, tooling, website, all built around building on Lightning. That's all open source, so anyone can contribute. But it aggregates the effort that's being put out there. I think people are very dispersed in their efforts, and there's probably a lot of duplication of the same thing happening, so it's kind of inefficient.
So do you think this would be an opportunity for somebody out there, potentially a freak who's listening right now and wants to contribute to Bitcoin? It's not a developer that may be able to do something, maybe organizationally on GitHub or something like that there.
Yeah, I don't think it's any specific one person that can do it. I think it's really a collaboration of many that's going to bring it together. So, anyone can do it, but if they don't get support from the rest of the community, then it's kind of for nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of, putting in the effort, as well as getting the support of the community members, not just individuals, but also maybe even, the implementers of the Lightning networks, like, the big names that are in the Lightning network, to not even say they have to do it, but just say, okay, here, this is where you go, type of thing.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating because it's coming together, right? And these libraries, and because again, I'm just thinking of other guests I've had, like Alexander Leishman at River. He was talking about specific libraries they built for their product that they haven't open sourced yet, but plan on open sourcing, that have made their processes within their company a lot easier with address management and reuse and stuff like that. Just simple things like that. And then you think of like Drew Mansell and Joe Kelly at Unchained Capital building Caravan, which is their open source desktop app for creating multi-sigs with different wallets and stuff like that. And then so they get the derivation path and everything right. So the user, it's an easier experience there and sort of automated. And then you're working on Polar. It seems like everything's coming together. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's getting better.
Like how long is this timeline of Bitcoin in your mind? Like
in terms of
it being successful, it being sufficiently built out in a successful project. Like, do you think we're going to bear the fruits of Bitcoin success in our lifetime? Will be our children or grandchildren? Like, are we?
That's a great question.
Like, the stuff that's being built right now is very rudimentary, it seems.
Yeah, I definitely think we got still a bit of maturing to do, but I think we can probably. I mean, it's hard to say if it's going to be like. I don't ever think there's going to be like a done for Bitcoin. Like, I think it's going to be just continued building on top of building on top of building, learning, adjusting based on the world around us, moving forward. The technologies that come about and improve, we'll have to keep up in the Bitcoin space as well with, right now, smartphones weren't a thing, a decade and a half ago. Like,
yeah.
Like the world.
I got the iPhone the same year, my first iPhone the same year Bitcoin dropped, right? Yeah. I think that was the first iPhone. Like 0809.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. So, obviously the world is going to move forward. So Bitcoin's going to have to, from a technical perspective, move forward along with it. React may not be the best application framework 10 years from now. So likely we're going to need better applications and tooling and stuff like that. So I don't think there's ever a done. I think there definitely is a goal of seeing it being usable by non-technical people. Like, first day, it should be as easy to use as signing up for Instagram or, downloading Cash App or something like that.
Do you think the limits of the system are such that that's possible?
I believe anything. Yeah, I believe anything's possible.
Yeah.
I believe. I mean, there's definitely certain constraints, being that a high priority goal of the ecosystem in general is privacy and security. That does add a bit constraints, but I don't think it makes it impossible. I think it just needs a bit of abstracting away. And I think, through developers building on it, we discover, we build foundations. It's like building a house, so to speak. It's like, all right, first you lay the concrete foundation, then you got to put up your studs, then you got to put up drywall, then you put in your fixtures and your flooring, like, you know what I mean? It's like we have to build the ecosystem itself, layer by layer.
Yeah, no, and I think you're describing this better than my question was attempting to. Like, it still feels like we're at the foundation phase where we're laying the cement, right?
Yeah, it does still feel. There's some small pieces that are like, oh, this should have existed already. Like, not that it should have existed because of the timeline, but we need this to exist. Like, we need these fundamentals. Like, all right, tooling to make things easier and, things
AMP.
like PBST,
PSBT. PSBT.
PSBT.
I make this mistake all the time. But so let's jump into AMP. How does AMP make Bitcoin more usable?
I mean, ultimately, it's without AMP, it's too confusing for the average person. It's too much information, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's like to have to mentally try to figure out where. And I know that that wasn't the original plan. Like, this is just because you're an early adopter, you got to deal with, there's only a certain amount of time, a certain amount of developers that can get things done, and you have to progress over time to build out and make things better. So I don't think anyone's intention was that we're going to expose channels forever. Like, it's always been like, all right, we're going to figure out a way to
make it like magic.
Payments. Right, exactly. To just make it work like a normal credit card transaction online. But yeah, I mean, I think AMP is just a great tool to hide the complexities of channels, because I think that's a detail that most people don't need to know about. I look at it as it's no different from, with email. No one knows there's an SMTP server happening underneath the covers. All they know is they type some words on the screen, hit send, and it somehow makes it to its recipient. I look at channels as like the SMTP protocol type of thing.
All right. You should, yeah. Like, some services are like just straight up giving you liquidity right away and trying to make, like Breeze, they do that. Phoenix is doing something as well.
Right.
To try and help. But those are, they seem like weird workarounds that probably aren't sustainable in the long run. But it does seem like things like AMP make it more sustainable. You can like loop in, things like loop in, loop out, and using AMP for submarine swaps where you just move your liquidity to the other side of the channels and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think having those type of services built in directly to the wallets just improve the user experience. Like, it definitely should be the case that if I'm a user and I deposit, $50 into my Lightning wallet, I should just feel comfortable being able to spend $50 in my Lightning wallet, barring some, I know there's channel reserves that need to be met. So that might take a little bit of, I don't know if there are any techniques or ways around that. But I think blending your channels so that there really is no such thing as channels in your wallet just simplifies the experience drastically,
Yeah, and then, well, I'm happy you mentioned like wallet software specifically. That's one thing. It took me a while to realize like how the wallet software is probably one of the most important, like the most important. It's the hardest to monetize, number one, but it's also the most important software being built on top of Bitcoin, because it's literally how you interact with your Bitcoin, right? And wallets in the future are going to be able to do so much stuff. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the wallet's taking on a big responsibility in the Bitcoin world. They're going to have to do a lot in the Lightning world. I mean, a Lightning wallet is a big undertaking, just in the simple fact of that's why I commend guys, building like Zap.
I'm a huge fan of Zap.
Yeah,
I'm a very happy Zap user.
Yeah, the story about how that got started and what he did with that is just amazing.
Well,
and where it is today.
Yeah, well, where it is today, it makes me a hardcore believer that like these wallet softwares are inevitably going to have to be open source.
Right. Yeah, you definitely need it. If you're touching Bitcoin, it needs to be open source.
Yeah, and permissionless too. Yeah, like it's. I'm trying to think about what I want to hone in on the wallet software here, because like, again, everybody's focused on like outside of Bitcoin. Everybody's focused on like DeFi. How do we create these weird crypto economic systems that put these digital assets to work? And there's so many, like we're talking about right now, like mental costs that go into interacting with these technologies. Like I feel like a lot of these projects outside of Bitcoin completely don't think about mental costs at all. They just completely don't acknowledge them. And what I'm trying to get at here is like wallet builders, wallet software. That's like their main job. It's just take away as many decisions as possible. So like we were talking about with Andrew Chow, like coin selection's a huge one.
Coin joining.
Coin joining is another one.
That should definitely be a part
easily coin joining, easy coin selecting. Like, but it's small stuff like that. Everybody thinks you need to create these unique crypto economic systems, but it's like, no, you just need to make this technology more usable.
Right. You got to bring it to the humans. That's ultimately what it is. It's like more. We're building for people that have crypto. To me, is a backwards. You're scoping your applications way too small. Like You need to build for human beings. Like this is majority of humans are not developers.
Yeah.
They're not technical. I mean, they can navigate around a computer. You know, I mean, these kids nowadays are growing up with iPhones in their hands at 1 year old, 1 years old. So
Well, you know this.
yeah, I know this from experience. So
I've got a lot of good advice from Jamal in the last few weeks.
yeah, but at the same token, it's like the technical details just have to be hidden, and I think we have to spend a good amount of time focusing on making a lot of the things that we know as technologists are the better things, like coin joining, like
Coin selection,
channel management,
fee selection,
fee selection. You know, all of these things should just be
like dust management, batching dust at the end.
batching. Yeah, like all of these things should just be best possible scenario on by default.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, in my opinion, the way it should be. Like you should open up a wallet, and I'm just imagining it should be doing all this for you. Like
Right.
it should be coin joining in the background while your phone's on the charger at night. You know, like your iPhone backs up every night. All right, let's just coin join whatever funds we got or received in today
Right.
at night every night. You know, it should be selecting the optimized coins when it's spending. It should be managing your channels and looping in, looping out if necessary to balance your channels out at night. So, like, that's why I say that the wallet software has got a pretty tough
Uphill battle.
it's got a lot of features that
It needs to bring to market. But with that being said, like I'm always flabbergasted by how the market's expectation of what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies should be able to do today is compared to like how nascent they are. Like as somebody who's built a company, a software company over the last 15 years, like how overblown are some people's expectations of what Bitcoin should be able to do today, and how much do they not realize it takes time to build all this stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it's time, and you look at it, and it's not like you don't have the VCs pouring money at people building for open source. Like there was a time in 2017 where you could just write a white paper and we should have been writing a lot of Bitcoin white papers on CoinJoin and such at the time. But there's not a lot of like this is. To be honest with you, I look at it as mostly pursuit, a passion. Like people are just passionate about seeing Bitcoin succeed and are spending their own energy, their own time, their own money in some cases to produce these things.
That's the other thing. You are a co-founder of a company, a successful company that's been around for 15 years, and you're dedicating your free time to Bitcoin.
I mean, I want to see it succeed. That's ultimately.
Were you doing this for anything outside of Bitcoin before you found Bitcoin?
No, I was heads down in my business, and that's the only thing that really, other than like technology that my business can use, I really didn't focus on anything else. It was, I fell down a rabbit hole. Today, it's even hard for me to juggle the two because I find Bitcoin so important. It's one thing to build a business to become profitable and to, get security for your family and hopefully leave something behind for your children. But the impact that I feel that Bitcoin can have on the world is a much larger scale, and the, kind of the emotional, like,
yeah, you're getting a little emotional right now. I can see it.
Yeah, like the emotional, like you get just thinking about the impact it can have and the small little bit that you can contribute to seeing it coming true it puts things into light. It put things into light, like, into perspective in the sense that, what do I find important, and, I just look at it like, getting rich that's one thing that's great for you, but, what impact did you have on the world as a whole? Like, what you came. You don't want to be born, come and gone, and nothing
Into
happened, changed
oblivion. Yeah.
Right, because you were here. Like, you want something to have been changed because you existed on this earth. So that's how I perceive Bitcoin. You know, maybe I'm
No,
a
dude.
bit living in a fantasy or something like that.
No,
but
no, you're not. Like I think that's what there's a gravity, right? Like
Right.
it draws. Like, and we have this conversation comes up a lot on this podcast. Like, there's just something about it. Like, fuck, like a bit devs. Like, it was easy to spark up a conversation with you, and just like, I feel like we had like a level of understanding of what we value and what we're working towards
Right.
immediately when you meet Bitcoiners. And I feel like we hit it off right away. And then on top of that, like, it is imperative, like, at this stage in human history, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're at a very pinnacle point,
Yeah.
or not a pinnacle point, a pivotal point. Excuse me.
The timing. couldn't
We're on
have
our
been
way to the
better.
pinnacle, but yeah, the pivotal point. Like, and that's the crazy thing. You know better than I. You're older than me. Like, how much the internet and technology has changed our lives since we've been alive.
I know. I lived pre-internet too.
Like, I lived right before AOL, and I remember life before AOL. Very,
man.
very, very short time of my life. I remember very little of it, but I did have one toe in. But you've seen, like, you were, what was it? What's this fucking programming language? I keep forgetting.
Modular
3.
3. Oh,
Modular
God.
3.
Yeah,
Like, from
that
Modular 3 to React. Like,
Dude, yeah. Yeah, it's this world of change. I lived in the dial-up era, you know, like I was in college during the dial-up era where to download a single MP3 took a half an hour. You know, imagine downloading off of Napster. Music that takes an hour and you're tying up the phone line.
yeah. No.
So, yeah, it's just going to take time. And I think that's another reason why I feel the approach that Bitcoin takes to building a solution that will ultimately be scalable. It's not going to be scalable tomorrow. No way. But if you look at how the approach was taken with the internet and the layered approach, and you see what's done today, like even when they were building the layers, no one had any idea that we'd be streaming 4K video down to our televisions.
How crazy of a thought would that have
25
been?
years ago, like they would have thought you were crazy, you thinking something like that. Back then, when I was young, we had 13 channels on TV that with antennas.
And you had the youngest lay on the floor, and they had to change the channel, right?
Right, exactly. Like, you had human beings that were remote controls. Like, you know, it's to me, it's the most logical approach to scaling a system, and it's unfortunate, but you know, people's expectations of what, you know, going back to the original question, you know, a lot of people's expectations, because we live in this world today of instant gratification and, you know, just urgency to get stuff done and built. It's unfortunate, but you have to understand that these things are gonna take time. They're gonna need to be flushed out very thoroughly, and it's not just like you're building the internet. Now you're building, as Andreas would say, the internet of money. Like that's if money isn't the most important application on the internet, I don't know what is.
The money is one half of every transaction on earth.
Exactly, it is literally the most important technology, so to speak.
One of the most important and one of the least understood.
That's so true, man. Dude, I couldn't even tell you anything about money until my mid to late 30s. Like it was.
What do you mean?
Like in terms of where money came from, like simple things. Like
What made you care about the crisis or Bitcoin?
the crisis started it, and post-crisis, I had lost hope. There's nothing we can do. Like the banksters have taken over. It's literally, we each have to just, you know, hope for or strive for happiness within your family, and you know, protect yourself.
Put your head down, take care of yourself.
Exactly. Just live the best life you can live. Seek happiness amongst your small social circle, and make the best of what you can do in the situation we're living in. But after the crisis, it was just like, what can you do? Like literally, what can you do? And this was the Occupy Wall Street days. You know,
Yeah.
people protesting.
They're fucking us over. This is pretty crazy. I have this up right now. I'm starting a piece on Bitcoin for somebody outside of TFTC, and I had this Timothy Geithner quote from February 10th, 2009. I want to be candid. The strategy will cost money, involve risk, and take time. We will have to try things that we've never tried before. We will make mistakes. We will go through periods in which things get worse and progress is uneven or interrupted. They told us that they were going to, like, that they fucked up, and that, like, Timothy Geithner said, progress will be uneven. Like looking back in retrospect, like the solution to their problem was just extending the problem. And that's why I want to start the piece with this quote. You guys are getting a sneak peek into this, but like they were choreographing what they were about to do, and people just took it but it goes back to the fact that people don't understand money or how it works. They think that these people need to control the money.
Correct. And
Right.
that's intentional. I've had many conversations amongst friends in smaller circles of just how the lack of financial education in the public school system is absurd.
It's almost intentional.
Yeah, it is. I wouldn't say it's almost intentional. It is absolutely 100. There's no other way to describe it.
Right?
That you don't teach people about how simple things, how to manage your credit, how to save, how to
Especially with the culture of guilting everybody into going to college, into going into tens of thousands of dollars of debt,
right.
and to go to college, and then not teaching them how to manage that debt after when they get out. It's just like, 6 weeks after you graduate, the bills start coming.
Yep.
You don't have a job.
Yeah.
You're fucked.
Yeah. I swear.
And then you're like, wait, what? What?
Right, yeah. I definitely have, cousins and such that are coming out of college and literally can't find work, or they're working in a different industry. Like that, and yet they're in mountains of debt. It's in my mind, it's no way this is just a natural cause of, no, this is certainly intentional to keep the masses, the majority of people, just, sheep.
Content.
In the herd, content.
And I agree with it. Well, that's the thing. Is it a nefarious action? That's what I go back and forth. Like, so I think there is definitely intention behind keeping people ignorant. And I wonder if it's nefarious in the fact that they just want to control people, or it's the fact that they fucked things up so bad that they don't have the ability to face the reality of the situation.
It's so deep into a lie that there is no
Exactly,
coming back. Type
exactly.
Of thing. Like, I'm too deep. I can't unwind myself because now it's too far gone. That I'd just be
because it gets and I talked about this with Leishman a couple episodes ago. I ask, being the Bitcoin guy, like my first, and I'm that typical douchey Bitcoin guy. Like my first question was like, how does Bitcoin work? And I just go, how does money work? What is money? And what is the US dollar backed by? And then 8 times out of 10, 80%, I'll get it's backed by gold. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. I get that a lot too. What is it backed by? I find it even interesting to think about, like the whole concept of money being backed was created by fiat, by fiat money.
Right.
There was no reason for money to be backed because it was the money. Like, why would money need to be backed until fiat system? And most people don't know that these dollars aren't backed anymore. It's amazing.
It's like, the Matrix analogies get thrown around, but it's like you literally have to get to unplug people from the Matrix. Be like, this is not how it works. Right. Everybody expects like this is the way the world works, but like it does not work this way.
Yeah.
And there are better ways to have it work. We think Bitcoin is that. Like, do you see Bitcoiners winning over the masses in the long run? Like, do you think our pitch is good at this point?
I think it's inevitable.
You do?
I think so long as we can keep Bitcoin chugging along and continuing to fight off all the attacks, whether it be from within with the forks or, outside coming in from the governments or state, I think, because if you look at the dollar, the purchasing power of the dollar over the last 100 years, it's inevitable. Like, the dollar just has to keep being the shit coin that it is, and Bitcoin just has to keep doing what it's doing. If we can maintain it, and like I said, fight off the attacks from outside. And obviously, we're going to keep making it easier to use for more people to get on board. I think it's, in my opinion, it's inevitable.
Yes.
I don't. Again, going back to one of the other questions about timeline, I think it could stretch past our lifetimes. Certainly, I don't. I could. It's because there's never an end. Like I think. I'm not sure. Like the world reserve currency, that I don't see happening in our lifetimes. Could it happen? I put a small percentage that it's possible. It's not impossible. I think, if enough damage is done, if enough corruption is exposed, if enough just wealth gets transferred, eventually you're gonna have a revolt,
An uprising.
an
Right?
uprising.
Well, that's the thing. So look what I highlighted here. They told us. Timothy Geithner told us, "I'm going to take time. This is going to take time, and progress is going to be uneven." And when he said, "I'm going to take time," people will probably take that as hey, this is going to take a long time. It's going to take years. But what they really did was take people's time. This policy pushed people into the workplace. It extended the average age of the workforce participant from the average age on the older end from low 60s to mid 60s.
Right.
It took people's time. They ruined this system, and they literally took time from people by forcing them back into the workforce because their purchasing power was diminished, and the people constructing and architecting the financial system fucked them over. And then on top of that, progress in the recovery is going to be uneven. They printed money out of thin air and gave it to banks, who then just put it in the assets that they owned to make their wealth
even more.
right? And then now you have 40%, or I think 60% of your average American cannot afford an emergency expense of $400.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Nuts.
Nobody's saving money, and if they are saving money, they're saving money that's getting devalued year on year.
Yeah. And I mean, how could you save when you got so much debt that you're piling up? You're encouraged. Like you said before, you come out of college and, the first thing I remember when I went to college, the first, what do they call them? Fairs was nothing but credit card companies.
The job fairs?
And job fairs.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of credit card companies. Or you see them with a booth right outside the cafeteria or one of the restaurants, and they're just, you want a credit card? Here's $5,000.
We know you need
You got no credit, but you got no history of paying anyone back. Yeah, I'm going to give you $5,000 because I know you're going to spend it all, and then I'm going to increase your limit, and you're going to spend all that, and so that you're going to come out of college also owing me $20,000.
Yeah, and you're in the cycle.
Yeah,
And it's hard to get out of that.
it is a hamster wheel, dude.
I know this from experience, man.
Yeah.
Because I know. I'll be open here. I know. I had to, again, this is well known on this podcast. I've never told this particular story. It was an effect from this part of my life. But I was unemployed for 2 years. And it got to a point where I couldn't pay back my college loans. I wound up defaulting. Mm-hmm. And I had to pay them back in one fell swoop when I eventually got back on my feet. And it was not easy or fun, but it felt like I was fucked over, to an extent. Fuck,
dude. How much would you say college benefited? Was college worth the money that you spent on college? If you look at it, every expense or every purchase you make, you evaluate. Am I going to spend $100,000 on this car? Or am I going to spend $10,000 on this car? $100,000 on the car looks really nice, but is it worth my $100,000? You can't really do that with college.
No.
Everything is inflated 10x or
because there's psychology behind it too. You're in part of the American dream is
socially and encouraged and
going to college. Everybody's got to go to college, right?
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point where it's the college system, the university system in America is laughable at this point because it's completely money driven. You talk about the NCAA as the shining example of college corruption incarnated. But then you just get into the whole system of tenure and the textbook racket that goes on within the university systems. And I had mandatory classes that were sponsored by corporate lobbyists that were just teaching you how to be corporate drones, like literally how to write an email that was acceptable for PR. Like I had to take them when I was in college a decade ago. Like that is the type of classes that you're forced to pay for. You're forced to go into debt to pay to learn how to become a drone.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even, I hear or I see or read, a lot of stories about even how that's the public school system. That, like, their intention is to mass produce, while, this comes from the industrial age of, every employee needed to go to the factory, sit at a station all day long, and just repeat the same process over and over and over again. And their children need somewhere to go throughout the day, so send them to this place that we'll call school, and we'll try to teach them some things. But ultimately,
The things they'll learn will be how to walk in a straight line and take orders.
exactly. This is what they'll learn. They'll learn how to listen to the authority in charge, And there's plenty of studies that show that no one can learn, or everyone learns at their own different pace, and everyone has their own skill set and creativity, and all these things that make us unique and different. And they try to, like, force that out of you and structure you at what makes you special. They try to basically dampen and
With
dwindle down
conformity.
into conformity, into this robotic state of just, all right, we need you to just come out and be a worker.
For most people, they've been pretty successful, right? Did you say?
Yeah, for most, for a lot. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of our very successful entrepreneurs do not finish college. If you look at it, there's a pattern
Right.
of very, very successful entrepreneurs that I think the tech industry has born many, many
Definitely.
Entrepreneurs.
But even with that said, even, well, as a millennial, as somebody, so I went through public school system and then went to private school for high school, and it's a crazy dichotomy, like night and day, like the different styles that you go to. I was lucky to go to the high school that I went to, but it just seems that the schooling system, specifically this public schooling system, has been this way in America for decades at this point. Technology is at a certain point too, that while even though people have conformed to sort of the structure of the public school and university system that's been built in America here over the last 5 decades, even so, even having gone through that, yes, some people are caught hook, line, and sinker and will conform. More and more people, because of things like Twitter, are speaking back or speaking up and saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't go down this path.
Right.
Like, we probably should work actually against this type of mental conformity moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that makes me hopeful about Bitcoin, is it really forces people to jump out of that conforming mindset of
Right.
how to think.
I think so too. I would say Bitcoin is one of the most liberating. I don't even want to call it just the technology, because it's not just the technology. It's more. It's so much more. It's it's social. It's economical. It's like lifestyle in a sense. It's literally like, once you get into Bitcoin, you just see the world through a very different lens. Once you understand Bitcoin, I wouldn't say once you get into it. There's plenty of people in Bitcoin that still think that, I don't know.
Well, you have people who are in it
bash
for the
it
money,
down.
right?
Right. The people that are, focused on the financial gains
Yeah.
in it, but once you understand the implications of what's actually achievable, it's mind blowing. Of the impacts, like you said, it can impact not just the largest wealth transfer in human history, but, the schooling system, our desires, reducing everyone's just urgent need for fast results. This fast food epidemic.
Right.
It's nuts. The food we eat is absolutely insane too. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, right?
Well, let's jump to, no, it's crazy. Well, you talk about complex systems. That's one thing that Bitcoin really drives home is systems are complex. Bitcoin is a very complex system that works.
Right.
It's an emergent complex system that works. And I would argue Bitcoin and many other complex systems are just not replications, but what's the word I'm looking for? Not replications, but they're similar to nature, right? And similar processes are playing out, Darwinian processes. And now I completely forget where I was going with that point. Fuck. What were we?
What was I saying about the food we eat?
Oh, yes, the food we eat. Yes. So complex systems. The food we eat is not like something we think about at all, but like complex systems, like starting with nutrition, humans run on food.
That is exactly what we run on.
It really balances out the chemicals, balances or imbalances the chemicals in our body and how we react in certain social situations. And in America, I can only speak for America, like most of the country's eating fucking shit.
Yeah.
And we wonder why people are so pissed off, stupid, and out of shape.
And you know, all types of weird diseases that we can't explain. And
Yeah.
and they're like, where does it come from? And it's like, literally, it's
What you eat.
it's what you eat. Like, you are what you eat. Like, it's literally,
You are what you eat. You're the money you use. You're the people you hang out with. It's like these complex systems, this complex person that you are today, and the society that we are cumulatively today is complex, and it starts with these building blocks: money, food, education.
Education, yeah.
Like,
and a lot of it is broken.
Well,
that's the sad part.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. Owls Lacrosse, if you listen to the podcast, you know about Owls Lacrosse. When I was working at Owls Lacrosse.
Oh, yes, I have heard.
That's one thing I got after when I was going to college in Chicago. I took the bus to the west and south side, and that's the first thing you realize is that the food deserts. Like a lot of the kids in these neighborhoods are eating honey buns and fucking Gatorades at noon, and they're all hyper and agitated during the school day, and they need this lacrosse program to get all their energy. But like, food is a very, very important part of this process. Like high fructose corn syrup, having kids eat these products for breakfast and then going to school, and expecting them to perform at optimal levels is just asinine.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, ultimately, there's these social dependencies that we as humans rely on, like our food, our money, our education system. That, to me, privatizing is a big core of the problem. When your motivation is profit driven and not best product driven, then you take shortcuts.
Cut corners.
You cut corners. You do things to save a penny per apple. Something as simple as seedless grapes. Like, what the hell is a seedless grape, dude? It's just baffling how far we've come away from our natural, lifestyles and habitats and way of living.
Yeah.
We've manufactured.
Well, it's a trade-off, right?
World.
It's a trade-off for lower cost and not accessibility, but accessibility, easiness, like ease of acquisition, right? But it's time preference. That's why
it's time preference. Yeah, that's the same thing I was thinking.
Right?
It's literally time preference, but it's hard to fight. It's because it's conditioning. It's conditioning from when you're in first grade.
Yeah.
It's literally.
Oh, I vividly remember every day in first grade bringing 50 cents so I get my bag of Munchos for the snack.
It's conditioning.
Or Cheetos or Funyuns.
When you're young, or my 3-year-old Happy Meal. It's literally like she's had a Happy Meal one time in her life, which I regret. regret every single day. But it's literally like every time she sees a McDonald's, it's like.
It's that dopamine hit.
Did
you see that video that was going around Twitter like a couple months ago of a baby taking a sip of Coke at McDonald's for the first time?
No, I haven't.
And it has to be like a 18 to 24 month old baby, and it takes it like its parent takes a video of it taking its first sip of Coke, fountain soda Coke at this age, and it literally had like a physical reaction unlike anything I've ever seen. Like the sugar rush to its head was like, what the fuck is this? Like, whoa. But that's like, yeah, sugar, man. That's like,
Sugar
it's something I've tried to cut out more and more in my life, but it's hard. It's impossible. I'm a fucking Irish Catholic who loves potatoes. And like, I love carbs.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, that's the problem, though. It's like you live in this world of where it's almost impossible to do the right thing. Like to go out of your way to try to eat better, to exercise, and to do the things that help you maintain and stay healthy.
To take possession of digital sound money.
Right. To hold your keys.
Right.
It's a strange world we live in, but I certainly believe that we have plenty of problems, but I certainly believe that Bitcoin helps. I wouldn't say it solves, but it helps a lot on the financial side. Like you said, half of every single transaction, if we can make that a little fairer.
Well, that's what I was going to ask to end it here. So, like, overall, are you optimistic or pessimistic?
About Bitcoin?
About, where we're
or
going.
the world in general?
The world in general. Like, we were born in a weird time.
Right.
And we're going to live through very tumultuous change in human history as technology takes over. Is it going to be a good change for us?
Absolutely. I believe so. I believe that, we'll stray from the course of what should be, but we'll correct. I think Bitcoin is a sign of correction. There was a time where I would say we're screwed. It's every man for himself. Live your best life. Get a gun, protect your family. Because if all goes to hell, we just got to do the best you can with what you got. But today, I'm definitely more optimistic about the world that I'll leave to my kids.
Yeah.
So I believe the world will be a better place so long as there's people like you and the many others in the Bitcoin space that are pushing to see this thing come to fruition.
Well, it's people like you again give me hope that I'm not dumb, because, like, again, finding very smart people like yourself who've built successful businesses, have raised families, and have a lot of skin in the traditional world, throwing your weight into Bitcoin. It's inspiring, and again, it's comforting.
Yeah.
Like, that's
funny. I had not thought I would have that impact.
Right? Well, that's one thing, as some of you freaks may not know, I'm an expecting father. Like, how much? Thank you. How much motivation does having children provide?
It changes your perspective drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes your perspective it definitely lowers or increases lowers your time preference. Mm-hmm. Definitely lowers your time preference, because you start thinking about the world after you and how the life they're going to live, the world they're going to live in after you're not here. So in every decision you make there's things that today probably for you are like high priority, like, oh, my shirt's not clean. Like my favorite shirt's in the laundry or something like that. That'll just be, you won't even.
What was that shirt?
What shirt? Right. It's like they change you substantially. But I think, that's one of those natural cycles that I believe, that we're kind of, from a spiritual level, we're put here to do, is to be fruitful, multiply.
Yeah.
you know?
It is that simple sometimes.
Yeah, that's how I tend to look at it. It's like, if there's anything we've been placed on this earth to do, that is reproduce. To me, is one of the most important things, because not only do we contribute to make the society, global society as a whole, better. We definitely could measure and say that we are in a better place today than we were 200 years ago. I would agree to that. But yeah, we continue to, as long as we don't break the planet, of course, in the process.
Very important. Well, that's the thing. I don't think we could break the planet as long as we don't. The planet will always recalibrate.
That's true too. Yeah.
As long as we don't make the planet uninhabitable. Is that a word?
Inhabitable.
Inhabitable.
Yeah.
Uninhabitable.
We can always
Uninhabitable.
nuke ourselves to
Yes.
oblivion.
Well, Bitcoin fixes this.
Bitcoin does fix
Instead of nuking ourselves, we could use Bitcoin mining to prove that countries are denuclearizing.
it. Ooh.
Right?
They heard that one.
Elaine O put this out
Really?
on her blog a couple months ago. So like, and it was specifically about North Korea. Like, if we were really worried about North Korean nuclear bombs and them winding down their nuclear program, what we would do is make nuclear energy nuclear facilities, not for making bombs, but for consuming energy, and then
Mining Bitcoin with it.
mine Bitcoin with it, and you would see like a
Spike in the hash rate.
Yeah, a spike in the hash rate to prove that they're denuclearizing.
That's funny. That's
Right.
a good one.
Right? That's what I like Drew Bensal said when he came on. We shouldn't be using nukes as rockets. We should be putting them on the bottom of rockets and pointing them at space, like not at each other.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm pretty happy or optimistic, I would say, about the future. Definitely more optimistic than I was 10 years ago, I'd say.
I think I'd agree too. We've been around all the topics I think we came here to cover. Like, what do you think? Or excuse me, how can people help you with Polar? Like, or do you need help with anything? Are there any pressing issues?
Of course, there's there's a bunch I'd like to do. I would love to. I got to put up a website. I think, as I mentioned before, discoverability, I think, is definitely something we have to do better at, because I went through the experience myself of looking for tools to help make my life easier. And there's definitely, like I said, it's segmented out. There's a bunch of great tools out there to automate some of the processes, but I think discoverability is definitely something we can improve on. So for Polar, feedback. Honestly, if you use it and you tell me it works excellent, or you tell me, hey, can we make this change or that change? I've gotten great feedback from some great people. Specific feedback, use cases that I had not thought of, because again, I was building based off my experience building on Lightning.
Like what?
One is to be able to basically split Polar into kind of two different applications. Like, there's a library, so there's an SDK, a Polar SDK, so to speak, that basically encapsulate all of the functionality to create networks, create the Docker files, to start and stop the networks, to add and remove nodes, that type of thing. So basically split Polar in half and separate the UI from a library so that other applications can use just the library portion to do different things. Right, that was a good idea.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can basically have like just a Polar SDK that has the functionality to create local Lightning networks, but many people have different use cases that they want to address that may not need the UI. Let's just say they want to automate spinning up a network with 200 nodes, open, close channels, and do XYZ, and then shut it down real quickly. And
so that says a lot about you putting this out there. Like, you had a problem that you wanted to solve, and then somebody else has like a tangential problem. It's not exactly the same. It's like, hey, this might be able to help, right? But that's a testament to, and what I'm trying to get at here is like not being afraid to put yourself out there in this space, because that's what I think. Like, a lot of people that I have a lot of people in my DMs like, how do I contribute? How do I contribute? I'm nervous, and I'm like, I'm not a developer. I can't do it. But like, I guess the ending topic here could be like, yeah, like what do you think? What got you over that hump psychologically of putting yourself out there and not being worried about the feedback?
To be honest, I guess it really was just like, I want to help. The desire to, I learn by doing. Like, that's the best way for me to learn, is to try to do something, stumble, figure out a solution, and it sticks. Like, whenever I come across that, it sticks with me, because I faced that issue and I may have spent an hour, 2 hours, or 2 days trying to get past this hurdle and trying to build. And so I learn so much more by doing than by reading only, or even doing like practice exercises. Like if you'll watch a tutorial video on how to do something, or you'll read a book on how to do something, and they'll have sample code, but it doesn't stick to me. At least the way I learn, it doesn't stick as good as it does when I actually build on it. So that was the primary reason why, is I wanted to learn and contribute at the same time. So it's like, okay, I can, and I think, finding projects that are leveraging the technical skills or the technologies that you have skills in are great ways to contribute. If you know JavaScript, there's plenty of projects out there. Polar's one of them, TypeScript, but same thing. And, or if you know Python, or if you know Go, or if you know C++, I think it literally is just a matter of finding what skills you have already and applying them to an open source project. And I don't think anyone would be turned off by you contributing to their project. I think everyone in the Bitcoin space is more than welcome of anyone willing to contribute.
Yeah, I think a lot of you would be surprised with how many of them are begging for, not begging,
Right,
but like,
so to speak.
in their minds, like, I would love help on this.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone wants to be the sole developer on any project. I think we all want assistance, because it gives you, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to help. Even you'll get more done.
Yeah.
If you had some assistance.
Any feedback's good feedback.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Jamal, I want to thank you for all that you do.
I appreciate it, man.
For trying to fix a problem that you had, and just so happened to fix a problem that a lot of other Lightning developers had as well, and making development easier, and then again proving that Bitcoin's worth it, right? Like if you're building this tool for these very specific developers, there's got to be something behind this. Like there's something driving us weirdos to this project for some reason. We're not weirdos. You're all weirdos.
I'm not a weirdo. At least I hope not.
No. That's the other thing. Like, yeah, most of the Bitcoiners are just down to earth people who want to do good in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Ultimately, I want
simple.
the world to be a better place.
Yeah.
For their kids.
Yeah.
That's my overarching. If I had to sum it up in a sentence, I want the world to be a better place for my kids.
I was going to ask you for a final thought, but I don't think we can top that.
Yeah. That's ultimately it, Bitcoin fixes it.
Boss, where can we find out more about you, what you're working on?
Of course, Twitter, even though I'm not a big tweeter. You can definitely catch me on my DMs, Jamal JSR on Twitter. Same on GitHub. Polar is a project there. You can definitely leave issues, feedback, or feature requests or anything like that. And yeah, I'm definitely, I'm around. I'm in bed devs. Try to be as often as possible, and that's pretty much it.
We didn't even get to your midlife crisis. Damn it.
What was the midlife crisis?
Motorcycle.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the bike life.
Do we have a minute for the bike life? Do we have a few minutes?
Yeah, of course.
You know what? Fuck it. We're not ending it right now. The bike life. That's something that fascinates me. Your avatar on Twitter is you dragging knee on
love it.
on a racing
Racetrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is that with? Like, it's got to be one of the most dangerous sports in the world, correct?
I would say street riding is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely not a professional, or not striving to be a professional.
Your avatar makes it look like you're a professional.
I know, that's why it's my avatar, dude. I wouldn't put the one of me falling and crashing and burning. That's my avatar. Yeah, I spent a few years, I wouldn't even say a long time, but spent a few years just riding sport bike, motorcycle for those bikers. It's the race rockets. riding on the street. It was, kind of just a hobby. I got into, a friend of mine actually sucked me into it. He was like, dude, let's get bikes,
Something about the speed.
I'm sorry?
Is it the speed?
Yeah, part of it's the speed, the adrenaline rush, definitely, I would say. But it's pretty, it's not, it's safer than you think in terms of controlling the bike. I mean, it's a lot to learn. There's a lot of technicals to learn, which, if you just buy a bike from a dealer, learn how to ride it, taking a test or whatever, and you just go on the street and ride, very dangerous. That, I would say, is very dangerous. So I spent a few years with my friends, riding around New York City, having fun, riding our bikes. And then began going upstate to track called New York Safety Track. It's a good name for it because it's pretty safe, where they make you suit up, full head to toe, leather suit, boots, gloves, helmet, and you get to ride around the track for a day, 2 days, basically. You can camp out at the track, So it was kind of like a fun family, like getaway with me and my friends and the families, and we get out barbecue. So it was like summer.
What's it like when you're actually dragging a knee though, and like hanging that low to the
first
ground?
time you do it, it's startling.
Yeah?
The first time you do it, because it feels like, because it's rubber, it's like just a hard rubber, so it feels like an eraser dragging on the floor. But the first time you do it, it's pretty shocking. But after that, it's it's just normal. Like, I mean, you get used to it to the point where, like, most times I'm trying not to drag my knee. It just happens naturally because of the way you position your body to get around the corner fast.
That's always fascinating me about like bike racing at that level. Like how much on the edge are you when you're dragging knee like that? Like how
In terms of how much wheel, how much tires on the ground, or how much?
Yeah, like how like what's the margin of error for you sliding into?
Oh, it's very thin. You got to have very good tires. You got to make sure your tires are in good shape. You can't wear your tires down to their balls. So, but there's probably close to about an inch, 3/4 of an inch of tire actually on the floor. Yeah, it's pretty small. You got to have really good tires. But the momentum is what's keeping you going. So you got to have good speed too. You can't be going around the turn at 20, 30 miles an hour. You got to be taking
Rip
it with
into
some
it.
speed. Yeah. And I mean, I think it was fascinating to me when I first got into it, like the first trip to the track, they make you sit down and teach you about, all the things about the track, where you need to be, because your bike should be in a specific spot of the lane. You want to start on the outside, come in to the apex, the peak of the turn, and then shoot for the outside when you're exiting the turn. So, the bike lane is what they call it. You have to learn about the bike lane. You have to learn about body positioning, because in order to drag your knee, you need to shift. You want to shift the center of gravity over to your left if you're turning left, and then push the bike up so you're not pulling it down. So it allows you to get more speed into a turn.
It's like a physics lesson, basically.
It is. It is a lot of physics, and so it's a lot of skill that actually helped me become a better street rider. More comfortable street rider. I used to, when I'm coming up on the turn, I used to slow down, to as slow as possible, because I'm scared this thing's gonna lean over. But now, I come into a turn and I can maneuver around like dangerous situations and stuff like that. So it definitely makes you a better street rider, and it's a lot more fun. It's safer. People go down at the track a few times a day. It's normal, common occurrence. No one goes to the hospital. Everyone's suited up. There's cleanup crews for your bike parts, if something like that. And a lot of times there's repairmen with parts that you can have your bike fixed same day and right back on the track.
It's balls.
So, yeah, it's a really great experience.
Is it cathartic for you?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely like it's just like an escape. You know what I mean? Just for the moment, to just have just me and the bike. You don't think about anything else.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, I'm looking for that escape too, I think.
Yeah.
As I can't play basketball anymore because of my knees. Bitcoin's more of a job than escape these days. Not more of a job, than it is an escape.
You're fighting off the trolls.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't have as much of a troll problem as a lot of people out there do. I try to keep a low profile on Twitter
Really?
outside of the post.
That's surprising.
I've been trying to reel back my Twitter activity, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably doing a bad job at it. I'm addicted to that app. As anybody.
Twitter, man. Twitter's it's a crazy place, dude.
It is. As is this world.
That's very true as well.
And it's just Bitcoin. Bitcoin has introduced me to many incredible people like Jamal. Jamal,
Appreciate that.
I
Man.
can't thank you, dude. I can't thank you for building what you built and coming to talk to me about it and all this shit.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be here.
Oh,
It's an honor. Like, I read your emails. I've been reading emails since 2018, like somewhere around that time, winter, somewhere around that time.
Well, thank you for providing some fodder to write about. Not fodder. Good news to write about, right? Well, I view what I do like very, very below what you're working on, stuff like that. You're actually making Bitcoin extendable.
Dude, trust me, it falls down the same way for me to the protocol developer. Like everyone's got the same thing. Like what you're doing is just as important, dude. It by far, because who knows? I wouldn't understand Bitcoin as well as I understand Bitcoin without people like yourself putting out content that's invaluable.
Well, I wouldn't be putting out this content if you weren't building shit, so the feeling is mutual, brother.
Right. Scratching each other's back.
Again, thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming, driving, and thank you for the Hennessy. I'm going to enjoy this. We're almost like halfway down this bottle. This might be the fastest gifted bottle of liquor that I go through on Tales from the Crypt.
I think we'll take one more sip before we go.
All right, here, let me pour you up. All right, we're gonna end it on that, freaks. We're gonna end it on a top up of the Hennessy here. Peace and love.